Okay, guys, welcome to the Sales Recruiting University podcast. Excited for another interview. We have Kevin Farrell on, regional sales leader for U.S. Health Advisors. For some context, he oversees 13 divisions, divisional managers. Under those divisional managers, there's 53 additional leaders. And under that huge leadership team, he oversees right around 400 field sales reps. So he's been in the insurance industry for almost 24 years with, I believe, just two companies. He's been with USHA for just coming up on 11 years. And so really excited about this interview. Ton of skill sets from recruiting leadership, managing at scale. And so this is going to be awesome. How are you, Kevin?
Doing great, Ryan. Thank you. Glad
Yeah,
to be here with you.
yeah, me too, my friend. What I'd love to do is just start with your, like a fairly quick recap of your story. Maybe in a few minutes or whatever, like fast track through those 24 years where you started and how you moved up to managing, almost a 500 person sales force.
Well, it's an interesting story to say the least. I mean, I went to school and I got an agriculture degree, and I actually, worked in that industry for a couple of years, and didn't take me long to realize that it probably wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go. Long hours and not a whole lot of pay in that business. So
That's not
I
fun.
thought, yeah, so I thought, man, there's got to be something better out there, for somebody who's got a strong work ethic, who's teachable and trainable, can talk to people. And I had a lot of people tell me through the years, that, man, you should be in sales. Sales would be a great fit for you. So I thought,
Yeah.
well, okay, my parents were both pretty much salespeople, so I thought maybe I had a genetic advantage there that might help me out. But and I got out there and I started doing interviews in different industries. And man, I tell you, I was really struggling to find a fit. I always wanted to kind of have my own business, to have some autonomy and some flexibility. And so
Mhm.
certainly I was looking for a high income opportunity for today, but also the opportunity to build something for tomorrow, in the form of wealth and residual income and things of that nature. And didn't want to spend my life on a car lot or something like that.
Yep.
So when I was introduced to this business, that was actually in 1999. I was blown away. I mean, it was everything that I was looking for, and so I got into it, in April of 1999. I actually got my license in May of 99. Got married in September of 99. So a lot of milestones that year. But
Yeah.
it's really allowed me to be in business for myself, but not by myself. Having the backing of a huge company
Hmm.
supporting me to some degree, but also allowing me to build something of my own. And
Hmm.
so I started off as a sales rep, and worked my way up. Became a field leader, training others, and had a small team, and kind of did well at each step, and moved into a divisional role. That was actually in 2003, and at
Hmm.
that time, you kind of had to move to find those opportunities. So I found myself in Little Rock, Arkansas. I've been in Texas my whole life and moved to Little Rock, Arkansas to do that. Built a successful sales team there, and then we had our first kid. So it was in 2005, and it's like, man, yeah, I'd really like to kind of go home and be closer to family and friends and stuff like that. And so we ended up moving back to Texas and literally started over. Went from 75 agents on my team in Arkansas to I think about seven when I
Oh,
got back to
wow.
Texas. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I had built up a pretty good book of business and had some residual income that kind of allowed me to do that. We went from that to being the number one region or number one division, excuse me, in our region in
Mhm.
a few years there in Austin, Texas, just north of Austin, Texas. And
Awesome.
so um, stayed in that position for quite a while there in Austin. And
You were,
our we had actually sold the company that I started with, and our president was a guy by the name of Turam Quay, and the company was sold to a private equity firm, Blackstone
Mhm.
Private Equity. A lot of things started to kind of change. I mean, their interests weren't really aligned with ours. I mean, private equity firms they buy companies to make money off of them and kind of sell them off or piece them out, whatever. And so a
Yeah.
lot of things started to change, and it really wasn't the company that I was a part of for so many years anymore. And so, Troy, when the company sold, he had actually retired for a couple of years and was out of the business. But in 2010, he actually got back in the business, and that's where U.S. Health Advisors was actually born, from that. And so in 2012, he invited me to come and join the organization as a regional sales leader, and I
Mm.
jumped on that opportunity. And it was interesting at first. I mean, you're literally almost starting from nothing again. Uh, but our ability to recruit and build sales organizations is allowed us to scale up pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
so that was in 2012, and here we are in 2022, and we're going to do about 110 million this year as a team, and
Yeah.
about 1.6 billion as a company. So it's been
Love
it's
it.
been amazing
Killing
run.
it. Killing it.
Yeah, we actually sold the company got purchased by United Healthcare 3 years ago,
Mm.
and so that was a big win for a lot of us that were kind of the pioneers, if you will,
Yeah.
that came early. And unlike the previous experience where, a private equity firm may not be aligned with what you're trying to do, being part of the United Healthcare company, they're perfectly aligned and, want to support us in exactly what we're doing and helping us capture more of the market that we serve. So it's been a
Yeah.
great fit.
Yeah. I've only heard good things about the company from the leaders that we know. So that makes a lot of sense. Something that stuck out to me is that I think is a good like lesson for people from a recruiting perspective. And you guys do this all the time, but you went from agriculture and you entered the sales industry, and now you have almost a 500-person organization after a couple decades. One of the things
Right.
that I see a lot with companies, especially when they don't have the recruiting and team building experience, from their perspective, they just want somebody that has this cookie cutter experience. Oh, I have an outside sales opportunity or an inside sales opportunity, and I want to make sure that they have 3+ years of outside sales experience and they've sold this, this, and this. And they immediately opt out, 95% of the potential opportunities from a recruiting standpoint. You went from agriculture, something completely outside of sales, and you blew up over a couple decades. The majority of, when we look at our clients, a lot, I'd say 75% of the recruits that they say, hey, this was my next top person, it was somebody not really relevant to that industry. They just came in and hustled, and they provided, the company provided a good comp plan, onboarding, training, and leadership experience, and the person worked and hustled and produced. And so I think that's super important. Another thing that stuck out too, and this is something that I've learned over the last couple of years, is I'm like, man, I'm coming up, I just finished 9 years with this recruiting, stuff, right? So at the end of next year, 2023 will be a decade. And it didn't get good until like a couple plus years ago. And if, there were so many times in those first 6+ years where I'm like, man, do I want to do something different? And if I would have changed what I did, I would have been starting all over. And over the
Yep.
last couple of years, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I stuck it out with this one thing and went all in with this one thing, because it's starting to snowball in a massive way and ultimately create the entrepreneurial lifestyle that I want. You've been doing, the same thing for almost 24 years, and now you have a 500-person almost organization. You're definitely cracking 500 plus here in the next, couple quarters in 2023. And because you've gone all in, freaking everything about the business, right? You know how to sell, all the issues, you know how to solve the issues, you know how to manage the reps, you know how to recruit, you know how to deal with the complexities of, all the different roles in different markets, right? And so as you go deep into one thing long enough, you become better than everybody else at it, which allows you to build a better organization, accomplish your goals. So I think that's really cool. For sales leaders or even sales reps that may see this, and even maybe like small business owners, what were some of those things that allowed you to kind of step up to divisional and then get the opportunity regionally? Like, was it specifically your recruiting skill set, or what made you, what gave you the opportunities to do that?
I mean, I think it's just, I mean, performing at each level. I
Yes,
mean,
for sure.
I've never asked for a promotion, like never went and said, "Hey, I'd like to be this."
Yeah.
I mean, it was always something that was offered to me,
Hmm.
just because, I just, whenever I would take on a new role, I would just, try to be the best at
Yeah.
that I possibly could be,
Yeah.
and, learn everything about doing that specific role
Hmm.
and execute. And usually opportunities will start presenting themselves when you do that. I mean, I thought you made two really good points about number one, uh, recruiting experienced salespeople.
Hmm.
Um, I would actually say the opposite. I would say the opposite of that. I mean, most of the time, what we find, experienced salespeople already have bad habits, and there's a reason that they haven't been successful elsewhere. you
Yes.
know and
Yep.
so we actually like what we call neophytes, people that are uh they're a piece of clay that you can mold into whatever you want to make
Yes.
them, and
Yes.
you teach them your system and how to execute what you do. And that's what we target. And I would say, I mean, it's a large percentage, 85 plus percent
Mm-hmm.
of our people have never been in the insurance business or
Yep.
done anything like that. But they're like you in that they're looking for the things that, being an independent reps offers,
Yep.
the autonomy, the flexibility, the things to be able to do things outside of their professional career that define them. you
Yep.
know, I'm not going to say balance, because in any opportunity where you can really make something happen, there's not going to be true balance, but
Yes. Yeah.
the
Gotta be hustling.
flexibility part of it is important. And we
Yeah.
always had a saying, there's no problem you can't recruit your way out of,
Yes. Love it. Love it.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's that, that mindset of thinking I have to have this person that has all this experience and all that is, is, I don't think that's the right way to go at all. I
Yeah.
think you need to have a sound training program to teach them what you want them to know.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of more. You really want to look for intangible qualities in
Mm.
people. You know, um, you want to look for things that they've done in their life that illustrate a strong work ethic. That illustrate their ability to overcome challenges. Um, that show you discipline and the willingness to sacrifice. To get what they want. I mean, those are the things that are really going to make a difference, not, oh, I worked at, such and such company for 10 years selling widgets. I mean,
Yep. Yep. 100%. And
yeah,
then if you have the person with those characteristics, it's just all about plugging them into a system that if they do the work, they're going to see the sales success, right?
100%,
That's the
100%.
that's the difference. Is maybe a smaller business owner, they want the more experienced person because they don't know how to, or from their perspective, the more experienced person, because they don't know how to like train somebody up into the role. So they think this person can just come do it perfectly and they don't have to do much from a leadership standpoint, um, which is a really hard route to predictably scale up your sales team. You look for specific characteristics, and the systems that they plug into at USHA allow the person to just like push these buttons, right? And do the
Yeah.
work and then see
Yeah.
success.
And we're duplicating ourselves in the process, in
Yep.
essence, you know,
Yep.
and that creates these layers of leadership.
Yeah.
And when you can get horizontal like that with your leadership
Yeah.
layers, well, now you have all these additional legs that you can
Mhm.
start to build on, and you
Mhm.
can really, really scale your business.
Yeah. In terms of like attracting experienced people, and this is something I'm curious to, hear what you think about this, because what I've noticed, and I know this for like the larger, for larger organizations in general, I always have, but we've experienced this in the last 12 months for us as our brand has gotten bigger, like online, and we've gotten more of a name for ourselves. We've organically attracted experienced people, like, coming after us. I was telling you before we started this recording that if Sales Recruiting University had to close for some reason and I couldn't start another recruiting business and I had to go find a sales job that I'm like, hey, I'm going to work with this company long term, like you're one of the 5 people that I would call right away. And the reason for that is I love the industry, but also there's a reason that you have 66 leaders and 400 reps. So I can assume based on that, with a bunch of these people making money, that I can follow this guy and I'm probably going to see success, right? So
Sure.
have you seen that as you guys have had larger success, it's been easier to attract experienced people, maybe like an outside sales leader?
Um, yes, of course.
Or
Yeah, I
does
mean, you're
everybody advance within your organization into leadership?
yes. So that was going to be, part of the thing here is we actually don't hire outside leaders.
Mm,
We hire, everybody starts from the ground up, here and earns their spot, so to speak. Now that's not to say that, we don't identify people in the interview process that we go,
yeah,
man, this guy would be a really good field leader, or this lady would be really well, do well in our leadership team. That certainly is the case, and that might be somebody that we might groom, for a position like that. But yeah, we do everything from within.
yeah,
We don't bring in any outside sales leaders whatsoever.
yeah,
A big part of our belief system is that you got to be able to show people how to do what they need to do, not just
yeah,
tell people how to
yeah,
do it.
100%. What about like an experienced, just a rep, not a leader?
Yeah, again, that's not a lot of what
Yeah,
we like. We like the rookies, people
love
that
it.
have never done it. Now, do we ever hire previously licensed agents? Yeah, once in a while.
Mhm.
And I got to be honest, it usually doesn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that you're talking about this because I wish this is something, we're a service company, right? So these are things we want to communicate to every client, but it's good for them to hear it from a very successful client or an outside organization that's really accomplishing what they want to, right?
Well, I mean, I think you could pretty much take almost any business, Ryan, and you could say, okay,
Yeah.
this is a one man show here, or a
Yep.
mom and pop business. Well,
Mhm.
somebody's doing the selling, and it's
Yes.
usually the owner,
Yes.
or someone like that. And my advice for them would be, you train the first one. Get
Yep.
somebody who has those qualities, that you're looking for, and you train them how you want things done, and then you just keep duplicating from there.
Yep. Yeah. Another reason that's important is because if the owner um, or the sales leader, with that title at a small business, if they don't go through that learning curve on their own, they can't confidently scale up the sales team, right? If they, if they don't have that recruiting, that leadership, that training and management experience, then, if you have some outside person come in, even if in the rare situation they had success within scaling the team, if they fall off, which it's probably going to crumble at some time, the owner doesn't know how to fix it, right?
Right.
They need to have that skill
Well,
set.
and you need to have the right mindset too, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to understand that, your sales team is your number one asset.
Yep.
I mean, they're the ones that bring in the revenues.
Yep.
And so you have to treat them accordingly, when you
Yeah.
design your comp plans and,
Yeah.
everything that you do, um, that's critical. I mean, if you're ever going to build a really successful sales organization, those things have to be there.
Yeah. 100%. So let's talk about, what are some things that you've learned from a recruiting standpoint over the last couple of decades that has allowed you to build such a large and successful organization? Like, what do you do from a recruiting perspective?
Hmm. Well, over the last decade, what have we learned that has allowed us to build? Um, Gosh, there's a lot to recruiting, obviously.
Yeah.
Um,
Just the point where the rep says, "Yes, I'm ready to roll." Just up to that point. Like, how do you do that at scale so well?
well, I mean, part of it is having a number of people that are actively engaged in recruiting. I mean, I probably wouldn't have as many folks as I have if I didn't have, 13 other folks helping
Yes.
recruit,
Yeah.
to the opportunity. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it all just kind of builds on itself. When I first started this region in 2012, I did all the recruiting myself,
Yep.
you know, and then as you teach others how to do it,
Mhm.
it you're duplicating yourself. And now instead of having two recruiters, you've got four, and now you've got six, and now you've got 13, you
Yeah.
know. And so obviously that's going to allow you to build a much bigger organization than if you were just doing it by yourself, of
Yeah.
course. Um, I mean, there's a lot of components. I mean, our comp structure, the way that we scale our business allows us really to be as big as we want to be.
Hmm.
We don't ask our sales reps to constantly sell more. I mean, we'd like them to, but usually people only have so much capacity by themselves.
Yeah.
Our method of growth for our company is, to be able to grow our writing agent base. So by having more sales reps
Hmm.
all the time, we can grow our company without having to ask every single salesperson to sell more every year.
Yes.
That traditional sort of sales model,
Hmm.
where you only have four salespeople for your company and that's it,
Yeah.
got a lot of flaws to it,
Yeah.
because if you want to keep building, you constantly have to ask them to do more. You have to shrink their territories, cut their bonus opportunities, to try to get them to work harder. And that's where you see a lot of turnover in this industry in sales, as people don't like that, obviously. So, we give our agents an unlimited income opportunity. We grow our business by growing our writing agent base. We have a philosophy that everybody can win
Hmm.
together, and everybody does win,
Yeah.
when the company grows.
Yeah.
So um, I think that recruiting has changed a lot over the years. I
Yeah.
mean, put it in perspective, I started out running newspaper ads. That's how we recruited people.
That's
We're a
awesome.
long ways from that now,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
now we're doing all internet advertising, and
Yeah.
we're doing Zoom calls and webinars and things
Yep.
like that. But at some point, you have to build that relationship, and they gotta take a leap of faith. They gotta believe in you, and you
Hmm.
have to build enough belief in them to kind of last them through that process of coming on board, and in our case getting licensed, getting
Yeah.
trained, all of those things. So
Yeah.
um it's selling. we
Yeah.
sell the we sell the career now,
Yeah.
or I do,
Yep.
and then the individual agents sell the products.
Yeah. Love that. Totally selling, right? That's what recruiting is. And you were kind of referring to you got to engage them and keep them interested through the onboarding process. So when we think about recruiting, what are maybe the two to maybe up to five core things that come to mind? Like from a candidate's perspective, why do so many people say yes to working with you, although it's going to take them a bit to be making money because they got to get through the licensing process? Like, what makes your presentation or your sales process and the recruiting cycle so, you know, attractive?
Well, I mean, obviously you have to do a good job of selling your company,
Yeah,
who you are.
yeah,
Um, you have to sell them on who your customer is, and their ability to grow within that market segment. You gotta tell them what your product is, how you find your clients, how you're going to get paid,
yeah.
the comp structure. And
Hmm.
then I think it's really, really important that they have a home run opportunity. They need to have an opportunity to build something for their future, so that they're not living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, when you think about, in our case, all of our agents, all of our reps are 1099. And so, you know, they're attracted to the autonomy of the opportunity. They're attracted to the income opportunity, to be able to make a great living, and also the home run opportunity to be able to have residual income, and big time bonus opportunities that allow them to pay off their house and take care of the kids' education, and all of those things. I think people want to be self-employed.
Yeah,
That's kind of the American dream, or
yeah,
at least that's what we're looking for.
yeah.
And we just cater to all of those things through
Hmm.
all of those aspects.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. That makes a lot of sense because an organization like yours, that's kind of the goal is, you can sell to the entrepreneurial spirit or whatever you want to call it pretty easily because it sounds amazing, right?
Yep.
But it's also really difficult to back that up with a system that makes that entrepreneurial kind of ramp up period fairly simple, right? Without all this complexity and just leaving it up to, hey, follow this instruction rep. And so you said a few things. I think I got everything. It's like you got to sell the company well, right? You got to sell the product really well, right? For you guys, what you sell is impactful, it's really meaningful, so you can pull on the
Mhm.
heartstrings of people really well. I read your guys' mission and vision earlier.
Yeah,
That's
you want to have a mission. Ours is helping people, and a lot of folks, like the idea of helping people and getting paid really well to do that.
100%. Absolutely. You also talk through the sales model, like what does it look like day to day to actually see success and what the ramp up looks like within your opportunity, the compensation plan, so they really get how they get paid. And then, closing it up with, hey, this is the potential. Like, here's the growth opportunity within our business model if you accomplish A, B, and C, right? And for me, that's I mean, it's obvious, but that's a huge piece when you're persuading somebody into a commission-based sales opportunity, especially when they're not going to make money, week one typically. There's got to
Hmm.
be something really exciting and big for the future to say, you know what, I get it. I understand that maybe I'm not going to make money for this timeline and I got to go through A, B, and C, but man, this is such a unique opportunity that's really unlimited. Okay, I'm going to take the risk. Let's rock and roll. Right? That's a, it's selling them on the future. And then ideally backing that up with a good experience from an onboarding, training, and management perspective. So talk through that a little bit. Like, you kind of alluded to it before, but obviously your insurance and 85+% of the people that you onboard, they're new to the industry, right? So like, I don't have my license. If you hired me right now, I'm going through the licensing process, whatever that timeline is based on the market. I don't know those details well, but what else goes on, right? Because in this type of situation, there's got to be things to keep people engaged because they got to learn, they got to take tests and pass it and be able to legally sell. Like, how do you onboard and lead people and keep them engaged through that process?
Yeah, no, and it's a really important point,
Yeah,
and I think you also have to be honest with them about the emotional roller coaster that they're going to experience. And this starts kind of the very first time you talk to them. If you've done a good job, of building out your platform, so to speak, to where you are pitching an exciting opportunity to people, then you have to recognize that at the end of that first encounter, they're going to be way up here. They're going to be super excited,
mm,
you know. And then if you're like us and what you're doing is commission based, when they go home and tell somebody else about it, whether that be their spouse or a friend or whatever,
yeah,
they're all of a sudden going to be back down here
the flip.
because usually everybody else is going to tell them, "What? No, you don't want to do that." La 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 la. And then hopefully you're going to get them back to talk to you again, and you
Mm,
can bring them back up here again,
yep,
to some level, and then they may go back down again, and then the next conversation they're back up here. And I think it's important to be sure that you get a commitment from them to see the process through.
yeah,
Ryan, the best way for you to make a decision is to know everything, right?
yes,
The only way that's going to happen is for you to go through this entire process with me. So, can I just get your commitment that no matter what, no matter how high or low you're feeling, that you'll just see the process all the way through with me?
you're just always
And then,
selling, baby. I love it.
yeah, and then you can make a really good sound decision because you'll have all the facts out in front of you. And so I think you have to tell people about what they're going to experience. That's going to give you a lot of credibility because exactly what you
Yeah,
said was going to happen is going to happen,
yeah, yeah,
and it prepares them for that, right?
yeah. That you
So
dropped so much gold right here. Yeah, keep going. Go ahead.
yeah, and so every time you have that next conversation, for us, our recruiting process is basically 5 steps.
Mm-hmm.
We screen them on the front end before we invite them to a group webinar to learn about the company and the position and the products and what we sell, who we sell to, the comp, all that good stuff. Then we screen them again after that.
Yep.
We have a few questions that we ask to see what they thought about it, and then they come to a one-on-one Zoom interview,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously we're screening them again during that. Then we invite them into our office, to meet them in person, to kind of see our environment, to witness our culture a little bit. And we will usually have someone other than the division talk to them at that point, kind of get a second sign off like, yeah, this guy's good. This girl's good.
Yeah.
So it's a selective process.
Yeah.
I think that's really important that it
Yeah.
has to be selective. They have to
Yeah.
feel like, man, I earned this spot.
Yeah.
They don't just give this away to everybody.
Yeah. Love
And
that.
so during that process, again, I think you're building this faith
Mm-hmm.
that's going to carry them through a lot of the challenges that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Spending a couple of weeks studying and taking their exam for us, or whatever certification process you may have in your industry. You
Yeah.
know, spending a couple weeks training, and it might be a little bit before they break ice and actually make their first sale. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and that's okay if you've done a good job of, again, building that belief system through
Yeah.
that first part of the process, and getting them engaged as quickly as possible. Inviting them into your meetings, or to be a part of your group chats that you may have for your teams, and having different people reach out to them and congratulate them on making a great decision. I mean, every opportunity that you get to sort of reinforce that belief that you already built
Yep.
is going to give you stickiness,
Yeah.
and to keep them around long enough, because that really is the game in the beginning. Is it's keeping you around long enough to where you'll actually start to realize. I say that there's kind of there's three phases. It's a job, it's a career, and then it becomes a way of life. Okay. So, most of the time when somebody starts a new job, that's exactly what it is to them. It's a job, it's something I can go do and make a paycheck.
Yeah.
And then as you start to do that and you start to have success, some level of success, you're like, you start to think, hey, maybe I could do this long term.
Yeah.
Maybe this could be a career for me.
Yeah.
But if you truly have that entrepreneurial mindset and you're treating it like a business,
Mm.
at some point it's going to become a way of life for you. In
Yeah.
other words, it's just going to be part of who you are.
Yeah.
When you're out and about, you're talking to other people about it, and it's just
Yeah.
part of your persona. And
Yeah.
that's when people in our company, and I would say any company,
Yeah.
are going to be able to experience the highest level of success, is when, it's a way of life for them.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I've never heard anybody explain it like that. That's like exactly what my experience was like,
Mhm.
from starting in commission-based sales when I was 21, you know, uh, till now. So that's super interesting. I wanted to recap on a couple things because you dropped so much good stuff. You talked about, just being honest at the beginning, right? A lot of people have been, misled and lied to in the recruiting and leadership process. It's really common for people to have, past, negative employer experiences. And so when you're honest and really transparent up front, that helps trust, right? And recruiting is a sales process. Is, if you're building trust, that's going to help you close more people. And it's good too, because if you're not setting clear expectations and their expectations are totally misaligned and they're expecting to make money in 2 weeks and it's really going to be 6 weeks or whatever the timeline is, well, you're just going to experience higher, amounts of attrition.
Yes.
The you mentioned setting expectations around a couple things, which is gold. It's around timeline, right? It's, hey, this is what it historically looks like for somebody that plugs in an AB and does A, B, and C. Here's what the timeline looks like in whatever, month 1 up to month 3, year 1, year 2, right? So you guys know that information and you can set really clear expectations so the candidate can either go, I'm confident in enough and excited enough about the opportunity to say yes and move forward, and I get the details, or they're not, right? But that timeline and clarity there can help their confidence in saying yes to the moving forward. And then you also mentioned setting expectations around the emotions, and this is this is huge because it starts literally after that, after the time they say yes, I'm ready to rock and roll, let's do it, right? Whenever that starts, the emotions can start from there all the way through the time that they're actually making good money and more confident that this is doable. um, and if you're not leading them through that emotional kind of roller coaster that can happen for everybody, then you're going to experience more attrition. So it's
Mhm.
about setting expectations. Hey, this is the timeline. Although that you're saying yes to this right now, by 1 to 2 weeks, you're going to start to maybe feel doubt around A, B, and C. And that's a part of it. Literally all
Yep.
466 people that work with us, they experience those same things. Here's how they got over it, right? Then you're going to
Yep.
complete your exam. And by then you're going to start going through the ramp up period, and you're going to be 30 days in. And during that time, you're going to experience A, B, and C. And again, that's normal, right? So the goal, right? And so bringing clarity there can start to help them through that mindset piece that you're talking about, but then they forget. So it's constantly leading them around that. Like sometimes on a weekly basis in the leadership one-on-ones, how are you doing? How are you feeling? It's week 3, and having those conversations and reminding them that, hey, what you're feeling is normal. I'm here to serve you and help you. Let's continue through the process, right? If you don't kind of speak to people individually and help them in that way, that can really hurt
Yeah,
retention.
I mean, you couldn't have explained it any more perfectly. I mean, when somebody comes on board, we schedule personal conferences with them weekly.
Yes.
So they get, one-on-one time with their field leader every week. And,
Yeah.
that's the time exactly what you're talking about, where we kind of allow them to express how things are going, what they're struggling with, and reassure them that that's totally normal. And in fact, you're probably going to have this happen and this happen. I know I did. And when it
Yeah.
happened to me, here's how I overcame.
Yes.
Uh, it's recruiting is one thing, but I mean, I say recruiting is fairly easy.
That's
It's
the
the
yeah.
next part, that is more challenging, to
Yeah.
get them up and going and making money. And,
Yeah.
uh, I can't imagine doing anything else
Yeah.
other than being a commission salesperson. I can't imagine, like, there's no way I would ever be anything else.
Yep.
Um, but it's scary for people, initially, for whatever reason. I mean, to me, it's like it goes back to this programming that you get from the time you're young. I mean, it's all about go get a job and
Yep.
benefits,
Yeah.
and it's so misleading, as those opportunities they pale in comparison to what people can make, and what they can build,
Yeah.
in a business like ours.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And then you're totally right. Like once because the operationally, the recruiting process, that's really cookie cutter, right? It's ads, it's initial screening, pumping the people into the group interview, right? The differences in the group interview between your leaders are, you're better than maybe the least experienced leader in the group interview process, right? So there's differences there because there's a different person pitching the group interview, right? So the closing ratios are going to be different. But overall, the recruiting process is cookie cutter. It's like same ads, different market, same screening and scheduling process, administrative work, pushing the people into the group interview, pitch the dream. People are either interested or not. You funnel them into a basic screening process and then a one-on-one, right? So that stuff is fairly cookie cutter. And once you have it implemented, in your case, in a specific market for a leader, it's like, okay, that's simple. That's how we pump the bodies in. That's like, I've been telling clients this for like the last few months. I'm like, really, when you look at this, don't think about it. It's just, I need the right quote unquote person. Recruiting is like 1/3 of it. Like 2/3 of it is all the complexity that happens after a rep's like, okay, I'm ready to rock and roll. I've signed my agreement. That's when it really starts. The
Yeah.
cookie cutter, the process is cookie cutter that pumps in the bodies, and all the complexity around dialing in your sales process, onboarding, training, how you manage, you do your team meetings, and all that stuff is really what it takes to retain your people. You mentioned another piece about, which is relevant to every opportunity, but in insurance, when they're getting the licensing piece, you got to engage them, right? And not just say, okay, get your licensing and just hit me up, when you're done, right? You want to get them plugged into whatever you got going, whether it's just you or you got a sales office, right? The more that we can get them engaged and connected with people and more bought into the culture and all these things, that's going to start to tie them to your organization a lot better. And it's all about, continuing that confidence that they had from literally the group interview and on, because the more doubt that they have, the more likely they are to be distracted by other opportunities and maybe not make it through
Yep.
onboarding.
Yeah, I mean, they need to be around people that are doing it and getting it done,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know,
100%. 100%.
because again, that reinforces that belief and
Yeah.
makes them want to get that, whatever those prerequisites are, done faster so they can get out there and start doing it too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. One of the things I've noticed about you too is and why I love this too is because my business wouldn't exist today if I didn't care heavily about investing into things outside of our business to improve things internally within our business. And so investing into outside organizations to make our company better is one of the reasons where it is today. You, um, I've noticed you constantly are investing more into recruiting. Like you just added 3 or 4 offices or whatever it was a couple weeks ago. And you were mentioning something around investing earlier, which is super cool. I think this is really important for business owners because a lot of leaders they're scared to invest. And it's super strange because especially in a commission-based opportunity, if you're not investing into training, salaries, maybe even leads, like you got to invest into something, right? For you, one of the several things you invest into is recruiting. So how do you think about investing into your business?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, you have to decide, do I really want to grow my business or not?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
because again, I think I think everybody sort of hits a threshold,
Yeah.
to what they can personally do by themselves.
Yeah.
And so now, you have to make that decision. Do I really want to scale my business? And if so, is the method of scaling to duplicate myself?
Yeah.
If I've been doing all the sales, then, now I can duplicate myself and have other people selling. Does that, and I would say most of the time that's going to be a big yes, that's
Yeah.
going to be a way to scale your business.
Yeah.
So I think it's critical to have that mindset first and make sure that the opportunity for people to do that job is going to be lucrative for them, as well. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so important that you recognize that your sales force is your most important asset,
Yeah.
in a business,
Yep. The money,
because
baby.
they generate all the revenues. Nobody else would have a job in your company if it weren't for those
Yes.
revenues being generated. And
Yeah.
everybody needs to be on board with that.
Yep.
I mean, when,
100%.
when when you come to our company as a whole, everybody from the top to the bottom understands that the sales force is the most important asset and
Hmm.
that we exist to basically serve them. And
Yeah.
that's from, a customer service rep all
Hmm.
the way to the CEO of the company.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So, when you have that mindset, I mean, automatically that makes it a pretty attractive opportunity
Yeah.
for those folks to come on board too.
Yeah. And what's cool is you're just being, I mean, that's just the truth. So you're being honest to the whole organization. Like the
Yeah,
organization doesn't exist without cash flow and revenue, which comes from sales.
right.
Um, and so that, I love that you guys just are honest with the people. Like, hey, we have a mission, vision. That's what we're about. But this is also a business, and the business survives and grows based on cash flow, which only comes from sales. So
And it's really cool to see it in action, Ryan,
yeah.
because I mentioned you take just a customer service rep working in our home office. Well,
Hmm.
they have the same mission that we do, helping other people every day.
Hmm.
But that is defined by not just helping our clients, but helping our sales reps
Hmm.
by
Yeah.
supporting those customers.
Yes.
If we're talking about an underwriter, they're helping other people every day too, because they're helping get those policies issued and getting a customer a new plan, but also getting a sales rep paid. So
Yes.
they understand, and it's ingrained all the way through there. So your mission has to be aligned with that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And it's
But in terms of investing, back into the business, I
mm,
think number one, you got to recognize what's your most important asset. What drives revenues? Well, for me, it's my salespeople. So
yeah.
I'm going to invest the lion's share of what I'm going to put back into the business into that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to invest in recruiting. In
Mm,
fact, half of my budget every year is recruiting.
yeah.
And then the rest of it is all invested back in the sales team, either in training, incentive programs,
Mm,
leads, whatever it is that we do to
yeah.
help them be more successful. Because if they're successful, I'm going to be successful.
Yep.
Just that simple. The
Yep.
more my sales reps sell, the more my region's going to sell, the more my revenues are going to grow. We can win together.
Yes. Yeah.
Cannot be an adversarial relationship. I can't stress that enough. I mean, so many companies, it's an adversarial relationship with their sales team. And
Mm,
it couldn't be more wrong. Could
yeah.
not be more wrong.
Yeah.
They fall in love with the bean counters, the accountants and people like that that figure out ways to save them a penny here and a penny there.
Mm.
And they don't recognize that when you start taking things away from your salespeople, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Some gold there. I want to recap is one of the things that you said is first you gotta want to grow the business, right? And it's good from an expectation perspective that even if you're investing into it, doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? Just like in your commission-based sales opportunity, when you're bringing on reps, we're pitching them, hey, this is what it looks like to ramp up. Here's the difficulties, but the end reward is A, B, and C, right? That same thing exists from an owner or entrepreneurial perspective times 5,
100%.
right? So although you're investing, everything that you've accomplished in building, almost a 500-person sales force, it has been freaking hard, I imagine.
Absolutely. You break a lot of eggs getting to that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that, come and go that you're always very disappointed,
Yeah.
because that they've just missed out on probably a life-changing opportunity for them and
Yeah.
their family.
Yeah.
But you can't make them do it. You can
Yeah.
give them all the training and the support and,
Mhm.
resources, but they got to want it too,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there'll be a lot of that, a lot of ups and downs. But, at the end of the day, if you add more than you lose, you're going
Yep.
to grow. It's
Yep.
that simple,
Absolutely.
so your recruiting has to be set up that way. In other words, I mean, it's
Yeah.
all about recruiting enough people that your writing agent base, in our case, gets bigger every year. And if it does,
Yep.
then your company is going to grow every year. But you
Yep.
can't help it.
Yep. Yep. And you gotta be committed to the growth, right? Just
Yeah.
like you don't want sales reps to come on board and quit, right? When they have the potential to see success. Sales leaders or entrepreneurs, they can't do the same thing. They got to be committed. If they really want to build their business and experience the lifestyle that they kind of picture in their mind, they got to be committed and think long term and not just think about, hey, this week of pain makes me want to stay small forever, right? Like
Right.
you got
Yeah.
to be,
And I have a hard time imagining that you couldn't scale any business like this. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
you really could.
yeah. I totally agree with you. Um, the mission piece that you mentioned too. Um, we just redid our stuff internally. We had a placeholder for our mission, our vision, our values. And it kind of aligned with what we did, but it wasn't like pulling on the heartstrings of the people. Even myself, it was more of like a placeholder because you're supposed to have it there.
You're right.
You know what I mean? And we recently changed that and it really aligns, it pulls on the heartstrings, and it's cool to see everybody actually excited about it. And it's a really amazing way I've seen in action, just like you're talking about, to get the whole organization aligned.
Hmm.
And so that's cool
Super
that's
powerful.
yeah, very powerful. It's kind of one of those nuancy things that it's hard to get perfect. And it doesn't seem important until you really like get it dialed and you see it in action. You're like, oh, this is actually one of the most important things is to have like a common mission and vision and values
100%.
of
Yeah.
the
People got to be working for something bigger than themselves.
yeah,
And that's also a big part of what attracts people to our opportunity
yeah,
is because they love the mission of helping and serving. I mean, that's most people enjoy that,
yeah.
making a difference in somebody else's lives. Now, I will tell you this too,
Mhm.
that we have fundamental principles also that are the guidepost of our organization.
Yeah.
I think you need to have something that every decision you make has to satisfy certain parameters, or
Mhm.
you just simply don't do it. You
Yep.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, for us, it's income for the agent, it's value for the customer, growth for the company, and wealth for the shareholder, and opportunity for the employee. So,
Mm.
everything we do, if we're talking about making a decision on a product that we're going to come out with, or a comp structure, or a bonus program, or I mean, you name it, it has to meet those fundamental tenets, or we just simply don't do it.
Yeah.
So when you have that combined with a mission of helping and serving, it's pretty hard to get outside the rails, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. And that's what that's about. It's like clarity. Here's where we're going. Here's how, the decision piece is huge. It can be really difficult if you don't have clarity within your business to actually figure out, what am I supposed to do? But in
Right.
your case, it's like, here's the idea. Does it align with these four things? The agent, the customer, what was the third one?
Shareholder and the employees.
Shareholder. Yep. And if it's a great idea and leadership aligns with that idea and aligns with the values or in your what you guys call the principles of the organization, then it's like really clear cut, and you can be confident and move forward and not be like, crap, was that a bad decision? I guess we'll see. It's like, no, it was a good decision because it aligns with who we are and who we want to be as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about investing, at a high level, for you guys are a very marketing and sales and building driven organization, right?
Yes.
um and so it makes sense
We like
that
we like to kid that we're actually a sales organization that just happens to have an insurance company
that's
attached.
right, that's right, that's what it is, baby.
It really wouldn't matter what we sell.
Yes.
That's the truth. I mean, we
Yeah.
could sell anything
Yeah.
uh, with the structure of our organization. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
But
I mean, I don't want to make light of it, but essentially, if
yeah,
you do it right, your product is almost irrelevant.
100%. Totally
You
agree
know,
with you. Totally agree. But ultimately, like at a high level, those things that you invest in is recruiting and retention, right?
yes,
Recruiting, like investing into people coming in the door, and then a bunch of different things, between comp and onboarding and training and management. That can be complex and maybe that changes here and there. But the other part of your investment is into that, which is ultimately the stuff that retains the people that you've recruited, right?
yes.
So it's recruiting, rep experience, success of the people, which is going to make them want to stay. And that's where your money goes. And that allows you guys to scale. Um, I know we're kind of coming up on time here. I'm curious to see, maybe we can finish up on, management, right? You have 13 divisional leaders that have pretty big responsibilities, big
Yeah.
management responsibilities themselves. And then it was, I think, 53 below those 13-ish offices that are whatever, team leaders, field sales managers, field sales trainers, whatever the titles are. And so that is a huge leadership responsibility from you and even for those divisionals and even down to the field trainer, right? Like the field trainer role, that's still not easy because you're dealing with people. So when you think about the topic of sales management, which is such an important piece to retaining people and keeping them, going, what are, maybe 2 to 5 core things that are extremely important to you to actually get somebody to want to continue working with you and excited about continuing to work with you?
Well, I would say first and foremost, you have to be a servant leader.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Period. Like, you know, um, that title is nothing more than an invitation to lead
Yeah.
and to serve others. And with that comes a tremendous responsibility to help someone else be successful. I mean, it goes all the way back to the whole give a man a fish thing, you
Yep.
know? And I'm telling you that if you're not motivated by that, then you
Mm-hmm.
don't belong in that position.
100%. Totally agree.
If you're not motivated by the opportunity to help somebody change their life, if you're just in it for an override commission or something like that, then you're not going to be successful. Number one,
Yep.
and number two, you don't belong there. People see through that.
Yep. I was gonna say
And
that.
so, when you have a servant's heart as a leader,
Yeah.
um, all you're doing is trying to help somebody else be successful. And, when people know that you care about them and what they're trying to accomplish, they give you permission to coach. They give you permission to hold them accountable. And so, our leadership team, it's really what it is. It's a system of checks and balances to hold people accountable and to motivate people and inspire people to do some things that they wouldn't do on their own.
Mm.
And, let's be honest. I mean, most of the people that come to opportunities, they haven't had the success they've wanted in their life. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there.
Yep.
And so you just have to have a system in place to where, you teach them how to be successful in life
Yeah.
and you hold them accountable to it. And, you encourage and inspire them. You believe in them more than they believe in themselves until they get there.
Yeah. Yep.
You
Absolutely.
know, I mean, that's what great leaders do.
Yeah. Love it. I'm just writing down notes. This is
No, you're
awesome
fine.
stuff. Awesome.
Um, I mean, it really is that simple. You lead
Yep.
people, you manage numbers.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
there is a management aspect to it, obviously, because they have to look at, their people's activities
Hmm.
and make sure they're engaging in the right things and, refine those things for them, teach them how to be more efficient at their activities. That's the sort of management side of it.
Yeah.
But the leadership side is the people part of it. It's building that relationship, it's having that culture, it's,
Yeah.
understanding their why. Why are they doing this? What's
Yep.
their vision for their future? I mean,
Yep.
if you don't know that, how can you lead someone?
Yeah. Especially in a commission-based role. It's like you need
100%.
to
I
know
mean,
the
it's
details.
critical. Well, it's critical that you understand their why and what their vision is. And then it's also critical that you help them tie the activities that they have to do to be successful to that.
Yep.
I mean, that is critical.
Yep.
Because otherwise, I mean, sitting on the phone and making calls or doing cold calls or, sending out texts and emails and going and networking and, doing all these things that salespeople do. I mean, it's not easy. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of rejection,
Yeah.
involved in what we do.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that aligned with your vision,
Yeah.
you're gonna get tired pretty quickly.
Yep. Yep. You get burnt out. You don't know where you're
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, the fuel
Yeah.
that is going to determine what your stamina is for doing those things. In
Yeah.
particular, in the beginning, because everything you do is going to get easier over time. You're going to
Yep.
get better at it. You're gonna start to learn things that are going to help you set better appointments and generate better leads and get referrals and everything's going to get easier. Closing percentages are going to go up, but we've got to be able to sort of keep them in the game until that happens, and that usually takes about a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that it's such like a long-term mindset for your leadership team, right? It's not just like, hey, because most of, all of your leaders, right, guys like us, we could be thrown into something totally random, a different industry tomorrow as a salesperson. It'd be like, yeah, this is how you input a lead, and here's kind of the script, and here's the customer, and we could wing it and go see success, right? That is not common.
No,
What's more common is for the average person to come into your organization, and we need to be able to serve those people to get them the ramped up. And what's funny too is the same servant leadership and the attention to detail and the one-on-one work and all those things, they're just as important to the top performer, right? Just because
yeah,
somebody's a top performer and they produce doesn't mean you can just let them do whatever they want, have no relationship there, because they're going to get distracted and go find other opportunities. You want to tie them to your company as close as you
100%.
possibly can.
That's the only kind of leadership they really need, is the
Yes.
servant leadership. You know, hey,
Mm.
can I wash your car for you today, bud?
Mm. Wow.
You're doing
Yes.
a great job. You know,
Man, that's a really cool
yeah,
and
no, you have to be strategic about your leadership, no question about it, because it's
yeah,
not the same for everybody. You
yeah,
know, your A players need only uh that servant leadership. What can I do? What obstacles can I clear out of your way to help you continue to do what you do best?
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
all the way down to your C players, they need directive leadership. You need to
Yeah,
tell them exactly what they need to be doing,
yeah,
and hold them heavily accountable to that.
yeah, yeah. So much stuff here I'm going to recap on is overall like what encompasses everything you just went over as the servant leader. And that makes it makes a lot of sense to me, like based on my personal experience too, is like I've always like our internal team, I've always put everybody first before me, before, my income, before the revenue of the company. Like it's been always about them. And because of that, we've had less than, 5 people quit in 5 years, and we have almost 50 people. And it's because we serve people so well. It's like love on them, pay them well, treat them well, and they're not gonna leave, right? And that's ultimately
Right.
what you're
Well, and
saying.
it goes back to that adversarial relationship we talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah,
If you've got an adversarial relationship with anybody in your organization, you need to figure that out. You
yeah,
need to figure out, well, something's wrong there.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, absolutely.
we should
And
all be pulling in the same direction.
yeah, yeah. And absolutely. It's good to know too. Um, you were saying that it needs to be authentic, right? There needs to be the desire. If your only motivation is to get the override, man, you're going to experience a lot of pain as a leader because the people are a pain in the butt a lot of the times,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's typical.
They're
I
like a
can
part-time counselor. I mean, there's all kinds of things that go into that.
yeah,
And the people that do it, they typically do love it, and they do
yeah,
it for that reason. You
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. It needs to be authentic. You need to truly care about serving them, and that's ultimately a sacrifice. And
Oh yeah.
a lot of the times at the beginning of a leadership role, not every opportunity, but especially in a commission-based opportunity, a lot of the times that transition to leadership is not only a sacrifice in, your day-to-day job, right? Because you're not just selling in your own little bubble, and now you're serving people. But a lot of the times, as you there's a lull in your income, right? To kind of scale up the sales team and think of it as like an entrepreneur within, the organization that you work with. And this applies to just a regular business owner too. But, when you start to build your team and recruit and onboard and train, and maybe you step away from just full-time selling, sometimes there's an income hit and you got to be really digging into that position, and it's got to be something you want to do because you'll get burnt out and hate it and not like the people, then they'll be quitting and the whole thing will blow up.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And you said it's you had a line in there, lead people, right? Manage numbers. Love that. And you said something along the lines of you guys, your leadership team has checks and balances to motivate and inspire your team to do things that they wouldn't do without those systems in place.
Right.
That's gold. Can you maybe throw out like a couple things? Like what does that look like? Those checks and
Well, I
balances.
mean, again, I go back to what I said earlier. Like,
Mhm.
if this person was having all the success that they wanted in their life,
Yeah.
chances are they may not be a part of your organization.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. Very true.
um, and so they're lacking, in some of those areas, most likely of discipline and personal sacrifice, self motivation. I mean, all these things that these intangibles that really
Yeah.
help people to be successful at whatever they do.
Yeah.
It's not just selling; it's anything,
Yeah.
and that's why you kind of look for signs that maybe it's there. In your recruiting process, like, man, it's there somewhere. At one time, they did this or they did that, or they were the high school quarterback, won a state championship, and stuff like that. I mean, is
Yeah.
is gold.
Yeah.
Um, so you want to make sure that your system that you're putting these people in is
Mhm.
going to nurture those things.
Yes.
Is going to teach them those things and hold them accountable for doing those things, because ultimately without those things you can't be successful
Yeah.
as a commission sales rep or as a independent rep or as a business owner, period.
Yeah.
And a big mistake I think a lot of people make is when they recruit people, they just expect them to have those things and to know
Yeah.
those things. And
Yeah.
they don't.
No.
They don't. And so you spend all your time just focusing on teaching them processes and systems of what you do.
Mhm.
And you didn't teach them any of these other things that are so important, like
Yeah.
vision, goal setting, and
Yeah.
time management skills, and all this stuff. You're going to really struggle.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I'm gonna plug this video into I'm redoing Sales Recruiting University online. I'm like, I want every client that comes into our service to watch this video so they can like this is a lot of this is gold. You're totally on point. So you have ultimately for you, obviously these are really amazing systems at scale too, managing as big of a sales force as that you have. So you have a sales force, to probably track the basic things like leads and pitches and close and calls and those kind of things, right? And that's the systems those are systems to track numbers. But then you're also leading the people, and that's the more intimate relational stuff. Like you hire me, you understand exactly what I want to accomplish in the next 12 months, 5 years, 10 years. And I get my own custom roadmap that you really understand as my leader. So you can talk about those things with me and help me understand where I'm at to keep me on track with my original commitments and goals that I said, yes, Kevin, you can hold me accountable to these things. I really want to accomplish them.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, and we want you to pick your path. We're not going to pick it
Yeah.
for you. You
Yeah.
know, we literally we're going to lay it out there and say, okay, here's X, Y, and Z. You choose
Yeah.
which path is appropriate for you. What can you commit to? That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to give you a structure to achieve that. So you need to make X amount of calls. You need to do this, this, and this, to achieve that. And in fact, we break the numbers down to ridiculousness. I mean, we reverse engineer the crap out of everything. So
Yeah.
like we know that it takes 32 contacts to generate a sale, you know.
Mhm.
So if somebody says I want to make X amount of dollars, I go, oh, that's 722 contacts. So
That's
that's what you
awesome.
need to commit to,
That's
right?
awesome.
And we help them build out a schedule
Hmm.
each week, you know, do this, this, and this during these times.
Yeah.
And then you have that accountability there to
Yeah.
sort of hold them accountable to what they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
We use a really cool program that tracks all their activities. So we know every week how many calls, how many contacts, how many appointments, how many referral partners they develop, social media posts, networking events they attended, I mean, everything. And they have a score that they're working towards
Yeah.
every week. And
That's
so
awesome.
then it's pretty easy when I sit down with you, I mean, I pull up your sales screen
Yeah.
and I say, Ryan, you told me you wanted to do this. This is what you wanted to accomplish because you wanted your wife to be able to quit her job, and stay home with the kids.
Yeah.
That was your real reason for wanting to do this. But man, I got to tell you, your level of activity is not, reflecting what you're wanting to accomplish. So, I mean, you tell me, do we need to adjust,
Hmm.
what you want to accomplish?
Yep.
Or are you
Yep.
willing to put forth a little more effort?
Yeah. See that, and that, for a leader, that simple thing, right? That's like, knowing those specific details is caring at scale, right? So you're not wasting all this time. And another thing that came to mind too is like, Kevin works for one of the largest, best insurance companies, I think, on the planet, right? And he's been doing this for 24 years. A lot of you are watching this and you're like, well, I don't have the leader. I don't have the systems. I don't have the people yet. I can't delegate. I don't have the management experience. I don't have the systems to track the numbers. Well, he didn't have those stuff. He didn't have that stuff at the beginning too, right? So you gotta start somewhere and implement, and then look at this as a long-term game. Now, like, you've been doing it for over a couple decades. Everything that you've done and learned, has it been worth it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
worth it, right?
Yeah,
But
I mean, I've been able to accomplish things personally and professionally. I wouldn't, if you had told
yeah,
me 20 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, right. Come on, man.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. But so once you have, from a management perspective, which is so important, once you have the systems in place, which don't always happen when you start building your team, sometimes you got to work through the kinks, and maybe it takes 3 to 6+ months to get everything really dialed so that you can see the numbers. But once you have those things and you're having your one-on-ones and those conversations with reps, you have visibility into the numbers, and that's a quick thing. You're not wasting a ton of time there. And the more intimate kind of, strategic, stuff like Kevin was talking about is, hey, this is really what you committed to and what you wanted to accomplish, but we're on track for 70% of that. Like, what's going on? Do we need to change something? Is something going on outside of work, inside of work? Like, how can we serve you to, be on track with your goals, or maybe change your goals? And all that he had to do at the beginning of the onboarding process, which was get clear on what the person wanted, right?
Yep.
And that's not a crazy time investment. That's just paying attention to your people, sitting down with them during the onboarding process. What is it that you want to accomplish? Let's get that on paper. He has those notes somewhere in the way that he manages, and then he can manage the numbers at scales. He shows up to his meeting, knows the numbers, knows the intimate things of that person, even if he's managing a ton of people, because he's organized, and he can have those deep conversations and lead at scale in a way that most organizations don't do.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It's a totally different ball game than you telling me this is how much I need you to sell this year.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So,
I'm
man,
not emotionally invested in
yes. Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. Yep. The well, man, I learned a ton today. This was awesome. This made my day. This was so much fun. I appreciate your time. We can
You
close it
bet,
up.
man.
Yeah, we can close it up. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you wanted to share? How can people contact you too if they're interested in, connecting with you to discuss USHA?
Send me an email, give me a call. My email address is kevin.ferrell. That's FERRELL at ushadvisors.com. And my phone number is 512-948-5910. Be happy to help anybody any way that I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you, my friend. Guys, make sure that you like and subscribe and drop a comment for Kevin. Any questions too, I'll make sure to catch those. So we'll end it. Thanks, Kevin. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Ryan. You too, buddy.